Welcome to Teach or Not to Teach, the vlog that explores the challenges and triumphs of education.
We are here to dig into the big questions and debates surrounding education. Join us as we talk about the latest trends, technologies, and instructional strategies.
Because at the end of the day, the goal is to provide every student with the best education possible. Let's start learning together on To Teach or Not to Teach. Hey everybody!
Hello, hello. Welcome back to episode 2 of To Teach or Not to Teach. We got a good one for you today. Are you ready for it?
Yeah, are we telling them right away?
Well, why not?
I don't know. I'm so excited for this one. Okay.
Do we need to recap anything?
No.
No.
Let's just
Okay.
go into it.
So today it's something we're extremely passionate about and might get a little bit of soapbox-ish coming up, but we are going to talk about to script or not to script.
That is the question. To script or not to script? Now, I don't know what comes to your mind when you hear to script or not to script, but in today's episode, we're going to be focusing on curriculum, scripted instruction, resources. So we're going to talk a little bit about like our definition, because before we started this, Kara and I were talking about how the word curriculum, we feel like has gotten very blurred in education.
Yeah.
Because we even thought, like, do we know what the word curriculum means?
Because I feel like it's used so interchangeably with, the word instruction or resource or whatever. And so we're like, maybe we just need to back up a hot second and just make sure we clarify, because like many other words in education, I feel like we can have 5 different definitions of the same thing. So just to make sure that we're kind of on the same basis, where we're at, we know, where we're coming from with these certain words and definitions. Yeah,
because they're so huge. Okay, so like what is curriculum? So if you go on Google and you do your basic, tell me the definition of Google, of curriculum on Google, you're gonna get a plethora of answers, but basically it's a guide in learning around a subject, about learning specific goals, the content, the strategies, the resources. But the big thing is that success in a curriculum is success in knowledge, skills, and the attitude. So that would be curriculum.
Oh.
Yeah. So a guide in your learning. So I feel like, we have that everywhere. It's not just what we purchase for curriculum.
True. And I feel like that's kind of where the line gets blurred and where people's definition or thought kind of comes from, because a lot of times whenever we think curriculum, we think of the basals or the math resource or whatever it might be. I feel like that's what kind of comes to our brain right away.
Yeah,
it's not necessarily all the things that you use to teach, but just those basal readers. That's what comes to my head. I just think way back to when I first started, and like treasures is what's like coming to my
Oh my gosh, right? That's
like,
a long time ago.
I know. I mean, I'm definitely dating myself a little bit.
Okay, but let's take treasures. So treasures this is good. Treasures was a basal, right? Yeah. So what, 14 years ago, 12 years ago?
So like in my head, when you say curriculum, for some reason, that's what my brain goes to. Probably because it was like the first, when we first started teaching, when we student taught, that was the big thing. And so everyone was telling me use this curriculum. And so that's kind of what visual pops into my head. But I think we need to try to clear that a little bit, because that's not necessarily true.
I mean, it is curriculum. It's a guide in learning, but it's not the only curriculum. Yes. So let's go on that a little bit. So let's take something like a basal, right? You open it up for reading and it gives you, on day 1, you're going to do this. On day 1, you're going to do this. On day 1, and you just go through this, like, I don't know, same thing every single week. It doesn't ever change it up. And so we continue to do that. We take that. We do the read aloud on Monday, then we're going to talk about the vocab on Tuesday, and then we're going to write about it on Wednesday, in hopes that our students are going to get the skills and the knowledge. But what happens, I feel like, is that that's not happening. We're not pulling in other resources. We're not allowing our teachers to pull in other resources, other curriculum, which then, we talk about, this is just like snowball. We talk about differentiation, meeting the needs of our students, but yet for some reason we're being asked sometimes to teach only this with fidelity, this scripted instruction.
Mm-hmm. And so I feel like it's at this point in the episode, we want to make sure that, say, we're not saying that if you have these or you shouldn't purchase any of these resources, but our goal today is just being reflective and thinking about like, how are we using them and how can we better use them in order to be successful, not only as educators, but to show student growth as well.
Yeah. And so I think if we think about a scripted instruction, right? So we're thinking treasures, we're thinking, oh, I don't know, panorama, math and focus. I'm trying to think of Eureka. I mean, okay, so all of those curriculums I think are great. I think they have great resources. They have a great pacing guide. It's wonderful. But so scripted instruction, right, is a form of direct instruction meant to guide teachers in order to be consistent in their teaching strategies. That's what we found. So it's been said the benefits of scripted instruction could help focus instruction by providing consistent language and maintaining fidelity to the lesson objective. That's what the goal of these are. And I want to push back on that.
Well, I think we want to push back because I feel like it's been taken so far in a negative direction. Like I feel like and maybe, I don't think anyone has ever sought out to do it, in such like a negative manner. I think everyone has started off in education with like just trying to make things better, trying to, grow kids, whatever. But I think that I kind of lost my train of thought. I think where I was going with that though is where it becomes, when I hear the word like lesson objective or fidelity, that makes me nervous because now we have teachers that they are using the resource, they're using the curriculum, whatever it might be, but then you're taking away the chance for differentiation. You're taking the chance away to be flexible with your students.
Creativity,
any critical thinking, like you are taking away so much. And I don't know if that's necessarily the intent of all that is happening. However, when it is scripted and you're handed it and you're saying, do with this with fidelity, our young teachers are going to be like, okay, why are you deer in the headlights? Like, I don't know what else to do. So of course I'm going to do that. But I think that's where maybe that negative connotation comes from and why we push back on that and have created a better way to do that.
We have because we do. Kara said it. We believe that there is a place for scripted instruction. Like she said, our new teachers, we need to give them resources, lots of them, mentor teachers. That's a different soapbox. But we need to give them a pacing guide. We do need to have a pacing instruction for schools, for districts. It's important to have that. But I think where we find fault is that districts or schools have said, you need to use this with fidelity. You have to only use this. And, being an educator and now being in the role of coaching other educators, it kind of like hurts my heart because we're unique. We're a different type of creature that as educators, because we're able to take a skill, content, whatever it is, and twist it, mold it, change it just enough for those specific kids in your classroom for that specific year. Because how many times have we heard these lesson plans are not going to work next year? We need to change them up. You can't keep your lesson plans for next year. But yet we turn around in the same breath, we say, use this scripted instruction, this curriculum with fidelity.
And I guess too, maybe that word fidelity needs clarification in whatever, realm you're working in, whether it's admin, district, educator, just to, solidify like, well, what do you mean by fidelity? Like, this is it, this is the one and only, or as in using the pacing guide and the order that they have things laid out, but I can still pull others. We've seen both. We have, when working with other educators and even Meg and I have been on the both sides of the court as well. Like we literally have worked in both. And so I think maybe, if you're listening and you're wondering, like that might be clarification you need to have as well.
Yeah. And I think when we hear the word fidelity, Kara and I feel it as you can only use this one thing. You can't use anything else. No other worksheets. Don't pull any other books. Don't try a different activity. Yeah. So if you hear us say fidelity, that's what we're meaning.
And I think a lot of times districts, they do that because, they're trying to create some type of consistency among their staff or their teachers, and they're trying to, try to promote student growth in some way, shape, or form. However, I feel like sometimes, it really boxes in your good teachers, those veteran teachers that just know, and even those coming in teachers that come in with so much creativity. And I think it just kind of, sometimes we use that word fidelity, it kind of boxes them in and makes them feel like they can't, or they couldn't, especially, like a rule follower like me. Yeah. It was really hard to kind of break that box down. But again, that's a whole nother soapbox. That's a whole nother soapbox. But so yeah.
I think and we want our instruction to drive the growth and the teacher effectiveness. Like, how do we do that when we are putting our educators in a box? And I think we have been very fortunate to have a lot of resources available to us, and we have found a way to make that purposeful. Like, how do we do that? We have found that it's content-driven instruction. It's taking the content that we're supposed to do, the curriculum, the knowledge, the skills, and the attitude of a certain curriculum, and putting things together that make sense for the students that we're teaching right now. So it's differentiation easily. It's meeting the needs of our students using the resources that we have provided for us, whether it's some of that's coming from that scripted instruction, or whether it's this amazing PD book that we found, or listen to someone, and bringing those pieces in to make it successful for our students and for us.
Absolutely. When we work with other educators, when we talk about that content-driven instruction, we always tell the administration, like, we are not another scripted curriculum program that you're purchasing. All we're doing is, like, we are just trying to encourage educators just to use what you have, just use it more effectively and efficiently in your classroom instruction, and you will be amazed at the growth that you see with that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think of it as, I have like this weird analogy about like scripted instruction. So I don't know, it kind of made sense to Kara when I told it to her, but I can go off like on a tangent. But I was thinking about this, probably because we're in winter and we're all getting like this weird sickness thing. But think about if you got a cold, a common cold, you feel it coming on, you're getting a little runny nose, getting a little scratchy, and you're like, oh, what can I do to just fix this, right? And you're like, I'm gonna take some Dayquil. Take some Dayquil and just knock it out. It's gonna fix it. It's gonna be more beneficial. I don't know. So you keep taking this Dayquil, right? And then 2 weeks later, I mean, with Dayquil's with fidelity every day. Fidelity Dayquil. I mean, you might even be so fidelity that you take NyQuil, right? You are gonna knock this out. 2 weeks in. 2 weeks in, this NyQuil and Dayquil with fidelity is not doing anything. It feels good in the moment. It's working in the moment, but in the long run, right? It's just not improving anything. So what do you do? What do you do? So you have a couple options. Do you start taking a different medicine? Other thing, resource. You get where I'm going with this? Use a different resource. Or is it to the point where you've tried different things, those things aren't working, so now you have to like go to the doctor and like figure out what's going on, more so intervention, right? Okay, do you see where I'm going with this?
I see where you're going.
So if we're sticking to this one thing and we're like, this isn't working, I'm doing it with fidelity, it's not working, do we just keep driving forward and hope that we feel better about it? Or do we do something different?
Well, and
I mean, it's like easy.
Yeah. And I think the analogy also plays into another thing with this whole scripted versus not. And I feel like part of it is also the teacher reflection piece. I feel like, when I was going through, college and all the trainings, I feel like I heard the word reflection. I don't
All
even
the
know how to say, oh
time.
man, I feel like it's just something that like a word that popped into my head when I was dreaming at. Like it literally as an ed major in college, it's like
Yeah.
reflect, reflect, reflect. Okay. And I feel like Meg and I and our teaching partner, our team, I feel like we do a really good job at that.
Yeah. It's usually in the hallway.
I feel like, hallway conversations, like,
Yes.
I feel like sometimes they're the most powerful.
Absolutely.
Because they're just like on the fly, what's going off in the top of your head in ideas form. And it's great stuff. But I think with some of the scripted curriculums and basals and all that stuff that, have been in production, we continue to use, I feel like sometimes that teacher reflection piece is taken away. And if you've been using the scripted long enough that sometimes you get out of the habit of that reflection piece, and some of the newer educators coming in, it's one of those things when you don't use it and you don't practice it, you kind of lose it, you know what I mean? Like that whole thing. So and I feel like that's huge. And I feel like that's one reason when we work with educators with the content driven instruction, when we dig into that whole planning and mapping, that whole piece, the teacher reflection piece is actually one thing that drives it so well.
Absolutely. And I think, you're right. You said this earlier. We hadn't said it when we recorded, but it puts them in a box. The reflection piece. You want to reflect, but why reflect? Because it doesn't matter because I have to do day 3 tomorrow.
Yep.
And, that which then brings me to meeting the needs of our students.
Yep.
I mean, I remember when we were taught and we did the things not too long ago, but long ago enough, we were taught like be responsive to your students. If they're not getting it today, what can you do different? You reflect on that, you change a little bit for tomorrow, and that's how you drive them forward.
Yep.
But if we're using scripted instruction, scripted curriculum, if you will, with fidelity, and we're not giving teachers the chance to reflect, change, and do better tomorrow, then you're right. Like, what's the point of reflecting in instruction?
And I feel for those some of those educators that feel like they truly can't like stop or like pause to whether it's even just reteaching a lesson or whatever it might be, or like I feel for those educators because some of them have been reprimanded because of it. And I feel like that's just a really hard spot to be in as an educator when you know what's best for students, but you're not able to provide what's best for students.
Yeah. And I think, that just kind of snowballs.
Excuse me.
It's okay. Snowballs into admin. I've been trying to really put myself into, our admin shoes. What is it like? And I think what happens is our teachers we're doing the best we can with what we're given, right?
Absolutely.
And then our admin are given a thumb down, and then they have to give us a thumb down. And then we start to complain or we start to have a hard time. And then that in turn goes to them. And here we go, this like vicious cycle. So I think, one thing that I want our listeners and watchers to take away from this is that whether you're admin or in the classroom, is we have found a way to use the curriculum, the scripted instruction, the PD books that are current, or just best practice, and put them together in a more efficient way for teacher effectiveness and student growth. I mean, that's at the end of the day, we feel better reflecting on what we did when we know what we did was best. And when we're told to do this one thing just like this, as teachers, as unique as we are, it doesn't feel good. We don't walk away feeling good. And then just the culture and the class, this is just a huge snowball. We could go off on this tangent.
Absolutely. Well, and I, like you said, like as educators, first, we're a unique being because like Meg said, our brains work differently, as in we see or hear all these different ideas and we can automatically modify and tweak it for our kids in our classroom right now in a matter of minutes, which I'm like, I don't think any other profession has that superpower.
I know, it just
pretty amazing.
Works.
But Megan and I, when we plan, we talk, we reflect, we can walk away with similar things of, okay, we're going to do this time, but we teach it so differently, which is, I think, a good thing because it just gives you more power as well. My kids didn't quite understand it, but the way she did it, they understood it, so we can tweak it, whatever. But when you're handed a script, it takes your uniqueness out of it. It takes your creativity out of it. And it kind of loses, for me, I feel like it just kind of loses me personally in my instruction. Because we always say, like, make your instruction your own, like bring yourself into your classroom. Your kids are going to respond. You're going to build relationships. But the same goes when you're given instruction. When you don't have ownership, when you're not in that instruction, creating that, I feel like that uniqueness and the power of your delivery gets lost.
And can we talk about my favorite thing to say is, you know, a scripted curriculum. Let's say your motto reading that, like coming off of what you're saying as far as like building a relationship, bringing your true self in. You're reading this curriculum and the teacher, it says T, and the teacher's going to say this, and then S, and the student's going to say this, right? Teacher say this, student will respond like this, and it's going to go like that. They never say that. It never happens. And if they do, you can't even call on that kid. That kid, you know, you see him or her, they're not going to respond that way either.
Nope.
And then what do? Then you have us teachers going, how do I lead them in this direction? And so now you're trying to follow this scripted instruction that A, didn't fit you to begin with. And now you have to try to solve the problem of leading them in the direction that you're supposed to take. Oh,
And I'm like, I feel it never fails. I'm like, I feel like they answer in the most opposite direction possible. And then not only, like Meg said, you're trying to guide them in the correct responses to your question, but like just bringing them back on task, because I feel like once they give a wrong answer, all the kids start with their stories, and
then you're trying to read the teacher manual to see what you're supposed to say next and how do you get the kid to say it. It's a waste of time.
Oh, and then it's so not best practice.
No, it just doesn't work. So to script or when to script is really as our thing. Like, do you leave? You know, I'm thinking of some amazing PD books that I absolutely love that do not work this year. Yeah. It does not work with this group of kids. And you know what? That's okay. Put it in the cupboard. And then next year, maybe those kids are going to respond better with that thing. So I think what Karen and I are trying to get at is that, do you use the script or do you not use the script? And how can you bring your true, authentic teaching self back into the classroom so your students are growing, you're a more effective educator, and now admin, walk by their classroom. What does it look like in a classroom that is scripted instruction, holding on to fidelity? What does it look like in a classroom that is using their scripted instruction to the best they think it is for their students? And what group's growing more? It's bottom line.
Yep. It all comes down every time. Student engagement and student growth.
Yeah. And we're going to, I'm excited you're going to have to come back to our episodes. We're going to be talking about, you know, engagement and what that looks like. I don't want to give them too much, but I'm just thinking, my brain is thinking about the scripted curriculum and how the quote unquote activities provided for that. I mean, you guys, they're so engaging. Can you hear my sarcasm?
Can you hear it through the microphone? Can you see it through the screen?
Can you see it through the screen? So you're definitely want to kind of come back for that one, because Kara and I that was what drives us for this is uniqueness. So
should we just tell them what the title of that one is going to be?
Okay. Yeah, we should. Are you ready, guys? It's going to be, drum roll, please. Are you saying it? It's going to be experiences versus activities. Yes, there is a difference. So, you know, I think this was a good episode.
Yeah.
I think that there is so much more to say about this, but the takeaway is to script or not to script. Are you going to use the resources best meet your students' needs and your teaching needs? And move forward with that. We want to thank all of you for giving us your attention, for listening and or viewing us If you want to know more or more information on this, there's going to be a blog coming out with this vodcast. So be sure to check that out if you need some more information on that and what that looks like. You can find us at integratedk12.com. And then on all of our social media handles, we would love a follow, a like, because we're constantly posting all of the things that we're doing in the classroom. So at integrated K12 is where you find us there. And let's see. I hope that you guys have a great rest of your week. Thanks for joining us on another episode of To Teach or Not to Teach.
Bye, guys.